Hello everybody, it's Keith. Help support the Northeast scene and declare yourself a member today. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or your podcast medium of choice. Rate us and leave a review. Every little bit helps. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It has every podcast episode plus other exclusive content. Like and leave a comment. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at TheNEScene. Also, continue to write us at northeastscene@gmail.com. We want to share your experiences as well. And now, here's the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Northeast Scene Podcast. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
How's everybody doing? We're here. We're on schedule. It's a regular Monday night, and that brings me great comfort, you know? I'm not all fucking mixed up wondering who we're going to talk to and what we're talking about and all this stuff. We're on schedule, and you know I like to be on schedule.
If there's anything you like, it's routine.
Oh, God, yes.
Well, I actually thought of you, was it today? I saw somebody say something like, hey, they're going to bring this quarantine back. We're going to go back into lockdown. And I'm like, Keith is somewhere celebrating. Like he's so excited. Like, fuck yeah, we get to stay inside. And the thing I saw said, the new lockdown will last well into the next year.
There's a line in the sand about visiting your family on Thanksgiving and not visiting your family on Thanksgiving. People are saying, you know, I'm on Twitter and people are saying if you go visit your family, you're a monster. It's completely irresponsible to do any kind of traveling right now with the pandemic. Don't do it. And then I guess I haven't heard anyone promoting to go visit your family. So where do you stand on all of this?
Well, personally, we're not going to be doing Thanksgiving. But that's because of circumstances surrounding. So Kelly's father is recovering from his last round of chemotherapy. Kelly's sister is a counselor in a large state prison where she's been exposed several times. My brother-in-law is a operating room technician, and his wife's school, his fiance's school was just shut down, and she was sent home, and she actually is awaiting a test because she thinks she has it. So we're just calling it. So if anything happens, we might just go, because we've been quarantining. We might go see Kelly's mom or have Kelly's mom come and visit us for the day. But no, nothing's happening.
Okay. And I am going to go see my parents. Now, right or wrong, you know, now listen, I'm going with Romy and her daughter. I'm renting a car so that we're not going to be in Penn Station with a bunch of people, close-knit, in a train, in a tube, potentially getting exposed. So I'm renting a car. My parents don't go anywhere. My dad hasn't worked since like March, so they don't really see anybody. My brother is going to be there. So it's going to be immediate family. And me, I've been tested recently. I don't have it. Romy's been tested recently. She doesn't have it. Her daughter gets tested weekly at school. And we're still careful. We're still careful. You know, Romy's even more careful than I am. She has to remind me to wash my hands and stuff when I come inside. Yeah. And that's good. So I'm going to go see them. And now if it were solely up to me, if I were a single man and I had no one else to consider, I would use this pandemic as an excuse to not go outside for a full 1 to 2 years. Oh. However, I'm not, the sole decision maker. There are small social gatherings to go to sometimes and outdoor things, and I want to be safe and I want to be accommodating.
See, if I was single, let's qualify this. If I was single and I was still drinking, this would be like a goddamn dream come true. I would DoorDash like 3 Wawa gobblers. I'd toss them in the refrigerator. I'd put some vodka on ice, and I would sit in my underwear and watch The Wire for fucking forever. Like I would just watch TV. Like I would be so excited about this because it's like I would have nothing to do and I'd just sit around and get boozed up and sleep and watch TV and hang out.
Exactly. This would be my dream. If I was still doing what I was doing 3 years, 6 months, 2 days, 5 hours, 15 minutes, and 39 seconds ago.
Oh, you got the timer running on you have you on your phone, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I would be in heaven. I would be working from home. Well, I wouldn't be in heaven. I would be in hell that I thought was heaven. I would be home. I would be working from home, and I would be in a lot of trouble, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It would just be it would be an issue.
Oh, big time. So let me interject real quick and say we're going to have Pete Appleby from Renee Heartfelt and Memorial back on the show tonight. The Renee Heartfelt Discography is coming out this week on 6131 Records, and we're going to talk to Pete about it, and we're going to farm some more Renee Heartfelt and Memorial stories out of him, and we're going to have a fucking good time.
Yeah, we got to talk about the fact that he fucking flies planes. You know that?
Yeah.
He's got his pilot's license. I don't know if it's like a mechanical pilot's like I don't know if he can fly like the small engine planes or he does like the ones where you get like the gliders that get drug up and you kind of just float down. But
yeah,
he definitely owns a plane.
That was one of the things I regretted not getting to talk to him about more, and we are going to do that for sure.
We're going to do that because I am also interested in the fact that like, can you imagine being really good at playing guitar and writing music? And singing and also be really fucking smart.
Yeah.
It kind of blows my mind.
He's an incredible musician, a great singer, good looking, a pilot, and a dentist.
Yeah. Like it still blows my mind when I see people do stuff like that. They're like, I saw somebody post something and it was like, oh, this guy's, he's a cardiothoracic surgeon, and he also just got his black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I was like, how the fuck do you do that? It's one of those things that like I think, Keith, you can recognize this. Like you study for tests, right? Like because you have your like certifications you get, right?
Yes.
How long do you retain that information for?
The second I'm done the test, I forget every minute of it.
Almost. And you walk up to any person that has gone to medical school. I don't care if they're a doctor, osteopath. I don't care if they're a fucking MD. You walk up to them and say, I'm seeing these 3 symptoms presenting. Fever, blah, blah, blah. They can name 15 things that it possibly would be.
Right.
That's the way their brain, they've retained that information and they're able to synthesize it. We don't work like that.
We do not work like that. And I've thought about this specific thing you're talking about, and which is weird, but I've thought about this, and I'm like, I think doctors, it's like any other certification. You work your ass off to get it, and then it's trial and error and experience. They probably see these things a lot. They're just in it for a long time, so they know.
Yeah, but I think there's also like, I follow a couple people on Instagram, and I don't know the name. One of them's called like Medical AZY or something. I forget why I started following it. I think it was just one of those suggested ones. But somebody takes pictures of like their notes that they take for medical school, and it's like, do you know like when you would take notes like in school and you would like kind of like try to organize it the best way you could, and like it looked like something you could study from. Like
yes.
these people's notes legitimately look like a page out of a textbook. Like they use colored pencils, they use markers. Like it looks like they're beautifully drawn diagrams. Like all of the things are like color coded and noted. And it's always like, holy shit. Like you really take this very, very seriously. I look at that and go like, whatever. Probably could get this right.
Northeast scene guest, Michael Shaw from This Day Forward. He, in high school or grade school, one of those, he did his entire semester's math homework on one sheet of paper. It was like origami. He would put it into little corners and fold it up. And I remember him telling me that the teacher was really impressed with it and showed it to everybody. We got to see if he still has that.
I'm sure knowing Mike, I'm sure he does. It's somewhere. He has it somewhere in his house.
We got to post that for sure.
That would be amazing. Because like that's the other thing with like people that are really, there's that part of like people that are just super creative And I think
Yes.
it's so interesting when people are able to be like analytically think through problems, but also have the ability to be creative at the same time. They're like, hey, take a look at this person. They're a spinal surgeon, but they're also an abstract painter. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how did you get? I remember, so one of my jobs, when I first, before I became a teacher, I worked at Princeton. And one of the things I remember that they did was like they wanted you to be a part of like the Princeton community, like part of the university, and like, you know some of the stuff that's going on. So they gave us, I forget how much it was, like $100 or $150 to come to campus, and they gave us like a gift card to like come and eat with your family, go buy Princeton t-shirts and shit like that, and take like tours and like, walk around and just enjoy the campus. And I remember we were walking through, Kelly was pregnant with the twins, and we were walking through the campus, and there was a group of guys playing volleyball, and it was like literally the scene out of fucking Top Gun. Every single one of these dudes was like fucking ripped, and on top of that, they were unbelievably, it was like watching professional volleyball players play. They were ripped, and they all went to Princeton. And in my head, I'm going like, how the fuck did you end up like this? Like, you're handsome, you're smart, you're unbelievably athletic. Like, I got fucked, dude. I was bald. I'm bald at 20. I was bald at 21. I wasn't even out of college, and my hair was thinning. Like,
that's a crime, man. That's a damn shame.
Here's the only thing I will say: I never had good hair in the first place.
You're not remembered for your hair.
No, I didn't have good hair. Now, if like fucking Anthony Green went bald, we'd all be like, God damn it, he had like Kennedy hair. Like,
he does.
He really does. Like, it's fucking phenomenal. Like, he can have his hair short, it looks rad. He can have it long, it looks awesome. Like, you're just like, fucking man. Like,
it always looks good. It's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. It's, you know what? If I wasn't such good friends with him, I'd be annoyed by it. But I know that with him, he just doesn't even give a shit. So he's just like, whatever. So like, I kind of take that as like, look, he doesn't even take time or effort. He doesn't really give a shit. So like, that to me is like, that's like a zero sum game. Like, he doesn't get anything from it. So
I don't even remember you with hair. Like, I just remember you now.
I remember it was my junior year of high school, maybe my senior year, I forget. But I grew my hair out. Do you remember that?
No.
I grew my hair out, and it was like down to like my chin, maybe. And I remember I did like the worst thing in the world. Ugh, I was such a dork. This is like painful to talk about this. So I remember I was like, I want to get like a fucking crazy, like awesome haircut, like an awesome one. So of course, in my brain, I'm thinking like awesome. I want something like ridiculous. So I did like, do you remember the guy from The Locust?
Yes.
That would have like he had like the bang straight across in the front, and then he had like the super long, but like Mr. Spock look on the side, but it was like incredibly long, and it kind of flipped up at the bottom. And then the back of his hair was like kind of like spiky. I did that.
What?
Dude, Keith, it lasted for like 24 hours. I literally went and I got up in the morning and I looked at my hair and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm not this person. Like, I thought I was going to like rock it, and I was like, this is going to be great. And then I was immediately like, I'm shaving my head. This is so dumb.
I was going to claim that you were making that up, but if it only lasted for 24 hours, it would make sense that I never saw it.
No, somebody has a picture of my hair. It's not that long in the picture, but it is like 100% like the straight across in the front, like Mr. Spock, like haircut. And it was like, it's painful to look at, but I've always kept my head kind of shaved. Like, as soon as even in high school, like when I was in like maybe like 10th grade, I remember I just cut my hair. Like, my mom bought clippers, and I started cutting my hair at home, and it was like that
because it was cheaper, right?
I don't know. It wasn't a money thing. It was just a convenience thing. I didn't like.
I used to do that too.
Yeah, I didn't like going to. And I think the other thing, this is what bugged me, is my mom used to make me get my hair cut by this guy when I was little. He was this older Italian guy in Warminster, and his name was Mr. Mike. And I remember he would always be like, yeah, I'm going to give you a good haircut. You're going to have a great haircut. And I was like, okay. And I remember every time leaving there, it was like that Seinfeld episode where Jerry gets his haircut and it looks like a little boy's haircut. Like it's like
Yes.
parted to this. Oh, it was so awful. Like I remember every time I came home, I would just be like, I'm putting my hat on. I had like an old I had a Chicago Bulls hat that I loved, and I would just wear that hat. As soon as I got my haircut, I was like, fuck this.
I hated going to the barber because I didn't want them to talk to me. I didn't want to have any conversation, and I didn't want to have to explain how I wanted my haircut. It was just, the whole thing was nerve-wracking. It still kind of is.
You know what always bugged me out though, and I thought it was really funny, is like my mom used to take me to that hairdresser. Like he was just him. It was just him, like cutting men's hair, right? And it would be like I would go in there and sit down, and again, another Seinfeld reference. But he had like not like super brutal porno. It wasn't like, you know, Penthouse and stuff like that, but he had issues of Playboy just like laying around like next to like National Geographics, and I was like, whoa. And I remember like trying to like maybe I could sneak and like grab it, like maybe shove it down my pants or do something with it to like get it out of there. And I remember being like, no, because the consequences of my mom finding me having this is so fucking worse than whatever I could do. Like, I would rather just be like, I would be mortified, first of all. Second of all, it's not worth it. It was, I could imagine my mom would flip the fuck out. Flip out.
Yeah.
My mom found,
she's super Catholic.
Dude, my mom found, what did I have? It was one of those like men's magazines, and it was from college. Like, you know, because we had, I forget who got them delivered, but like, you know, Maxim or some bullshit like that, right? And I had them in my car, and my mom was like, literally like, why do you have these smutty magazines? I'm like, what are you talking about? And in my head, I'm going like, I hide those really well. What are you talking? Like, why are you going through my shit? And she's like, they're in the front seat of your car. And I'm like, oh, mommy, those are like men's magazines. She's like, I don't want any of that stuff in my house. I'm like, okay. Like, Jesus. Yeah, no, my mom's like ultra Catholic with stuff like that.
Yo, magazines are weird. Remember them? Like, remember actually looking at a magazine?
I got a magazine delivered to my house up until about a year and a half or 2 years ago. And it was the only magazine I ever read. And it was called The Week. And it literally came out every week. And they would like, they did a really good job of like every news story that was important in the last week, they would write an article about it. But the article was all different quotes from different opinion pieces around the country. So you would get like the really like the National Review, which would have like kind of like the conservative point of view. And then they would have like stuff from like Mother Jones, which was like the kind of far left point of view. And then they would have like kind of like a centrist kind of like, and then they would like kind of put it all together in a way that was like, here's what some people say, here's what other people say, here's what libertarians say about it, and ultimately here's the story.
You could have just said, yeah, that's crazy.
Like, I noticed this is now like you know, when people used to do that like in a conversation, when they're checked out and they don't want to say anything anymore, they used to say that's crazy.
Yeah, that's what you ever see that meme where he's like, yo, I'm on my 8th that's crazy, but he keeps telling the story.
I haven't seen that one, but I've done that before. My students use this one. They go, oh, that's wild. That means
I like
shut
that
up.
one. Yeah. I feel like I have a very good censor for that type of stuff. Like, if someone is just checked out or doesn't care, I'll shut a story down right in the middle. I don't care.
See, I push through.
Oh, I know. I do this podcast with you. I mean, come on.
I'll push through. I'll make you listen. I'll start asking questions. What did I say about that? Remember? Like,
I've mentioned this before, but you're a conversation. Wait, no, I was going to say you're a conversation bully, but that's not exactly an accurate description. You don't stop. Like, when someone will be like, and then I went to the market and the craziest thing happened. Pause. I ran into this person that I knew. Like, you hook every thought together so that there's not even a break. So when I'm editing this thing, it's hard. There's no break. You'll be like, and then I went to the market, and the crazy thing is that I saw this guy, and then I knew him back in the day, and he was a professor, and I'm just, there's no way in. There's nowhere to cut it.
When does this guy breathe? What the fuck?
I literally wonder that. I'm like, how you must talk and then like suck in air through your nose or something?
It's like that cycle breathing. Do you ever see people that play the didgeridoo? Like that's how they do. Like they keep that sustained note the whole time. It's because they like breathe in through their nose and like constantly just have air coming out. That's why they can maintain that. I'm going to stop. That just crashed and burned. I don't know what to do with that. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Right now, it's time to talk to Pete anyway. So
phenomenal.
Here it is, folks. Pete Appleby. Enjoy. Folks, help us welcome back to the show, Pete Appleby. Woo!
You!
Thanks for having me back on, guys. Good to be here. Good to be here.
It's great to have you back. It's now, since the last time we spoke, which I think was in August, everything in the world has changed and absolutely nothing has changed. Do you find that as well?
I would say that's a pretty good summation.
Yeah, because we're still in a pandemic. There's still no music. I've been through all kinds of life experiences and experienced a lot of growth, but at the same time, I mean, I'm still working the same job. I'm at the same desk, same computer, recording the same podcast, talking to Pete Appleby.
And is it just, as years march on, does it seem that way that like, things can go, 3 months goes by fast, but then day by day it's been slow and not, I don't know.
Yeah, man. Time gets weirder the older we get.
Yeah, maybe that's a universal truth, right?
I think that's a weird thing that I remember my mom saying that when my the girls were first born. She was like, the days are long, but the years are short. And I was like, that doesn't really make sense. And then you start living day by day and you're like, wow, the days really are long as shit. And then you kind of like get into habits and routines. And then I look and I go, my daughters are about to be 7 next week. I'm like, holy shit. I remember the day they were born. Like it felt like that was a year ago. Like it's insane how quick that time has passed.
Yeah. Maybe being a parent makes that go by faster for you, or as you're saying.
Well, I think now we have the baby. She's 1. Days go really slow with the baby because she's like now she's like up and like walking around, and it's like everything had to be like 2 or 3 weekends ago. I just spent like the whole morning just baby proofing everything, and we've been kind of doing piece by piece. But like every day she figures out something else new to open or break or grab, and I'm like, ugh.
I imagine if you have a baby, the days are long, the years are long, the minutes are long, and the seconds are long.
Everything's long. It's just everything is long. And it's, you know what the really fun part though is like now she's like starting to get to that point where she stopped being like a inanimate kind of thing. Like she would just be like, I lay here and ruin diapers, and then you put me to bed and then wake up every 3 hours with me. She's now to the point where she sleeps through the night, but she's also like, it's cool to see her like every day, like, oh, she's taking more steps, or she is starting to like mimic stuff that we do. So we had a Santa doll out today, and the Santa doll goes ho ho ho, and she literally does this thing where she like purses her lips and goes hoo hoo hoo. It's like super adorable, but at the same time you're like, all right, let's get to the part where you're like somewhat self-sufficient. Like, can you get your own juice yet? No? All right, good.
So we're happy to have you back on the show, Pete. And folks, this is an exciting week for fans of Renee Heartfelt. The Discography is coming out on Black Friday on 6131 Records. And Pete, tell us, now you have a physical copy of the record right by you. Tell us a little bit about it and what's on it.
Yeah, cool. So I really did just pick this up. I don't know actually how long ago 6131 got it, but it's a gatefold. It comes in, I checked out the colors and I'm really excited about that. It's a clear vinyl, like this kind of cool blue cloud, and then like an almost gray metallic vinyl. Nice. But we had to do a 2 LP to get all the songs on there because it has the EP, the LP, 2 songs off of a radio show, which is funny. I think we did to get on this Finger 11 show, if I remember correctly. And then what was the last thing we had on there? I'm actually trying to pull out. Let me get out of the bag really quick. Oh, man, what was the last thing we had on there? We had the North Sea 7-inch. I think one song off that, Bottles. Yeah. So all in all, it's what, 4 sides and a little over 40 minutes. Yeah, it's basically all of our recorded music, everything we did.
That is exciting, and I saw that there's no pre-sale or anything, so it's limited to 200 copies, and you just got to get one.
Yeah, pretty much. So that was kind of how 6131 wanted to do it, and I kind of left it up to them, and I actually just dropped off a bunch of old merch with them too. So I don't know how they're going to do that, but it's just kind of surreal to finally have it, and also to have it, 15 years after the fact, right?
Yeah, really.
So I'm excited for you guys to see it and check it out. It comes with a cool lyric sheet, although hopefully the corrected lyrics. I went through there and tried to proofread them, but we'll see how well I did. That turned out pretty cool, and it's all artwork by Charlie Flexen, who was our original bass player.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, he did. Obviously, I think we talked about last time the design for the LP, but he revisited this and kind of did some new artwork. And the gatefold opens, and it's got some new photographs from a show on our tour when we went out to the West Coast. And I can't remember but I think Charlie shot it. So anyway, it's been really cool, and it's cool to have him back and working on it again. Just because so much of the stuff he was doing, especially with like the logo and everything, was kind of his vision. So it was neat. He was always kind of part of the band, even when he stopped playing with us.
That's great. And I'm excited to get my hands on a copy of that because, as we told you last time you were on the show, we're just huge fans of the band. How did you work out all the legalities? Because I know you had some problems with textbook music, and there was the woman who just wouldn't let you guys go to another label, or I think there was some shows maybe that you couldn't get on, or tours, or some trouble. So how did you get past all that to put out this reissue?
That's a good question. I think, time is the healer of all wounds. I guess at some point Textbook just wanted to unload the record, and 6131 was just in the right position and made it look pretty easy. I think there was just a one single contract signed, and 6131 now owns that album. So yeah, I mean, you think, oh well, now it's so easy, but at least it's done. Who cares? But yeah, I don't think there was much to it other than that. I think they just worked out a deal, and it was kind of, Sean might have been in the right place, right time, and I was surprised he wanted to buy it, or he wanted to re-release it. But I think, as I said, he kind of gotten involved with the band just to really get us in the position to record the LP. So it's kind of cool that he's doing the re-release too, and being right in Richmond, like 2 blocks from my mom's house. It's wild.
They seem as excited about it as we are, which is awesome. I was Googling to find some information about the record, and there was just a random tweet from last year where they're like, Renee Heartfelt is awesome, aren't they? And I was just thinking, yes, they are. Maybe that was like foreshadowing for the re-release.
Yeah, maybe so. But I mean, I do feel like, and I could have my times mixed up, but that he had gotten the rights to this record some time ago. It's been a little while. And he was kind of, I think, waiting till he had time to do it. I think he already had some other albums lined up and other artists lined up and stuff. And then I do think I don't know if the pandemic changed the timeline, but the timeline did get changed. I think it did get pushed back, but kind of makes sense for it to be coming out right about now, which is, I think, almost exactly 10 years or 15 years, if I'm not wrong, from the original release date. But it's just wild. It's kind of crazy. It just happened, but here we are, right? I guess the power of the internet, people still being interested.
I have a question. It just seemed back in the past with Renee Heartfelt and the woman you were working with at Textbook, who just seemed destined to, I don't know, stop the band from doing anything. Now, we talked about it before, and you said, you had a lot of feelings around that, and rightfully so. Did you ever talk to that woman again, or did you ever get to ask her, like, hey, why are you doing this?
Like, I'm sure that she had her reasons, and they had their what they were trying to do, or whatever was going on that might have been outside of her hands as well. But so I don't mean to attack her or be bitter, because again, it wouldn't have happened without her. So without Textbook, right? But I didn't understand it, and I do feel like we did have some email exchanges back in the day about it, but never really spoke directly, except for, I mean, it was kind of whirlwind when we did sign with them, because Sean was basically like, hey, there's a label that'd be interested in you, could get you guys in the studio, get you back in with Matt Squire, which we were really pushing for. And I feel like within a matter of a couple of weeks, she showed up on my front doorstep with the contract. And maybe we talked on the phone once or twice after that. And after that, it was really, just email communication. And it was really, at first, it was great. I mean, there was lots of big promises. And I mean, I think that's part of what set us up for kind of some frustration, is that it wasn't like, hey, we're going to put out your record and that's it, and you're lucky to have that done. It was more like, we're going to do this, we're going to do all this. And we were a bit naive at the time, sure, and hopeful. But that didn't come to fruition. And then we're also like in the studio, and there was issues with not even getting paid. Like at one point, the session almost got shut down because she was not paying the bill kind of on time. Like I think they agreed to like pay half midway through or something. And that was probably the first sign of like, this might not be what I thought it was, right?
Yes. And
I think to some degree, Sean was blindsided by as well. And of course, Sean kind of got us on with Textbook and then got fired. And he was like, hey, sorry, I'm not involved with this anymore. And that's, I think, when things really went south. But that was after we'd kind of recorded. I think we had gotten the Digipack CDs and we were trying to play some shows. And that's when it kind of started being like, this is awesome. We kind of made it this far. And she did get the album recorded and mastered and released. But I guess stuff that may have been outside of her control just started taking over her life and her ability to really do the label. Now, remember, they did release Soleil.
Yes. Yes.
Am I wrong?
Garrett from Texas is the reason.
Come on. So I was excited. That was. I remember being like, wow. But I don't know, and I don't know what they did with their contract. I don't know if it was just a one record thing. I think it was. They were probably a bit wiser than we were, because we kind of signed our band away.
I've heard that story so many times. A band and so many artists we've talked to have had the same story. You sign to a label, you have an advocate. Suddenly that advocate is gone and the band is left out in the cold and they slowly wither away.
Yeah, because it really does take like that. I think the community around the band to kind of keep it going, right? It takes more than just, but yeah, we definitely, there wasn't that communication there, right? We didn't have that relationship, I guess. I was pretty upset about it then, but kind of got over it. And looking back now, more just understand, how life is. And we, everybody kind of has high hopes for what they're trying to do. And I think it would have been matched too if there had been a buzz around the band that kept it going. But I can appreciate too, for her, it was kind of falling flat. How much more money is she going to invest in this? And then I'm like, hey, what about re-releasing the album on Revelation, just the vinyl, sort of maybe also inching towards, hey, we really want to get off your label.
Yeah.
I don't think, she didn't really love that either. So at least as I remember.
Well, if we're going to look at the positive side of things, the record got released, and Death of the Ghost and the EP are classics to this day, and now the rest of the world is going to find out when this discography drops. Yeah,
that'd be awesome, man. It's awesome to hear you say that. And it is, like you said, and not to beat a dead horse with it, but I really am grateful that it did happen. And sometimes, it's just how it goes. So I am grateful to Textbook as much as it kind of went really, really south. I'm definitely grateful that it kind of all went the way it did, because it probably wouldn't be the record it was, especially without putting us in the studio with Matt Squire, because we really wanted to do that after working with him on the EP.
Pete, last time you were here, you tickled our fancy a bit, and you were like, I have a lot of stories about the recording of the Death of the Ghost and our time in the studio and all that stuff, but we're going to save that for next time. Well, now it's next time. We are anticipating the release of this discography, so we want to dig into all the stories, all the intrigue, the feelings that were going on while these records were being recorded. Let's start with Death of the Ghost. How about that? Let me set the stage a little bit. So how old, remind our listeners, around how old were you when we were going in to record this record?
I think I was 25.
25. Okay. So What is your mindset at this time? Now, when I was 25, my main concerns, I was always like upset about some girl, and my main concerns were going out and getting fucked up and probably chasing a girl, and that's about it. So where were you at this time?
I mean, certainly that was an element of my life, was, all of that, everyone's out socializing, living up, staying up late. I think we talked about last time, I'd kind of lost my edge at age 24.
Yes.
So those are all definitely new experiences. But I'd graduated college and I was really focused on doing this band. But really, I mean, I think I was still in a pretty melancholy headspace. I think I was also listening to all of the standards we talked about last time. That was definitely in my
Yes.
mind, but I was definitely wanting to do something with this record. We had recorded the EP, and I felt like that was sort of a really kind of our demo, the continuation of our demo, and it was in the direction I wanted to go. We had worked with Matt Squire and kind of got a sense of how to work with a producer
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just someone recording you, right?
Right.
So I was excited to get back into that, but like headspace wise, you know, I was definitely, feeling a little bit of that tear of everyone going through that change. You go through it in your mid-20s, right?
Oh, yes.
So that was definitely something that I was preoccupied with. Certainly for Death of the Ghost. I think that lyrically that was their sort of just working through all that kind of transition, right?
Right.
Into adulthood, so to speak, or like, what is your path?
And that comes through in the record because that was where I was at that time. And the melancholy, urgent nature of it was just something I really connected with. And, I was in a band at that age, at that time as well. And I thought, this band's going to be big and we're going to tour. And you have all these hopes and expectations, and none of them happened. And then I was like, yeah, if the band doesn't work out, I'll move out to LA and see what's going on there. That never happened. Basically anything I planned to do didn't happen, but that's part of being young.
Oh man, it is. And I mean, those dreams, maybe it's East Coast kid dreams to go to the West Coast, much like I think kids in California dream to go to New York, right?
It is.
But I think I had all the same dreams. I think I really wanted to go to the West Coast as well. I wanted to, and to the band, I was still self-conscious enough about the music we were doing that I didn't have illusions of grandeur yet. I was just like, oh my God, if we could just record a record, if we could record an LP, that would just be amazing. So much so that we kind of put ourselves into the studio probably a little preemptively. The Lighthouse Man, the band had played like one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had not, like, a lot of it. They were kind of like, wait, what is this? A little bit, they were definitely, and they played such a key role in all the songs, especially, Aaron and Colin, the brothers. It was so great to have them because they were so talented and just kind of musical with stuff. And then of course to just have the power of Colin, with whatever song I was bringing. But nonetheless, I feel like we had like 6 or 7 really solid songs and the rest were kind of loose. But it was like, oh my God, Matt's available. Here, she's putting up the money, sign the contract. Let's go in and do this. And as I think we touched on before, there was a little bit of that background pressure of knowing that I did kind of have this path I've been working on for a long time to go to school.
Yes.
And I wanted to do that. I wasn't like, but I also wanted to do this. I was torn.
Well, we're glad that you recorded the record because, come on, where would we be without these songs?
That's awesome. It's always good to hear you say it. But yeah, I'm glad it happened too, man. Gosh, it's amazing. Like, you really think back to all the little things that have to happen for something like a record to happen. And then of course the fact that, yeah, if you end up with a different producer, you're going to have a different sounding record.
So let's talk about working with the producer. Cause I've never worked with a full on producer where they're like, no, do this or no, do that. Like, the engineer is usually a friend or someone I know and they'll give suggestions, but like, tell us about working with a producer on that record in the studio.
Well, I think that there was, at least when we were coming in, we wanted it to sound like Manic Compression, or we wanted a little more like just a heavier raw sound. And Matt could certainly do that. But I think at first, because we went in and did maybe 2 days of just playing the music and he would just listen, like we just set up in the sound room.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of going through and we were kind of, getting a basic idea of the songs that we were going to record, how we were going to record them. He was getting familiar with them. Although I think we had sent him some demos. He was familiar with some of the songs. And then he was just talking about, hey, maybe again, basic stuff, cut that chorus. It shouldn't be as long. Should we rethink that bridge kind of stuff? So a little bit like that, not too not too granular, as I recall. So that was cool. And then we started setting up drum sound, and you kind of start getting that first, as like that first kind of idea of how the record is going to sound. And we immediately noticed it was like, Matt Squire was doing kind of the big, clean rock sound, right? Which is awesome, and it was good. And I think he he had a good idea. I think he had a good idea what the record should sound like with the band, but we were also wanting to be hardcore kids, right? Like, so I think when we went into track, because we had trouble tracking the EP, because we didn't want to, weren't used to playing to a click track. We weren't used to taking that much time with it, maybe. So I think that was frustrating. In fact, we had not to jump backwards, but we had, and I actually forgot about this. Aaron brought this up on a podcast we did with Where It Went, which was pretty cool. But Aaron was talking about that on the EP we had recorded and scrapped it. I think we had done a session, 3 songs, and it just didn't turn out. But that was our first time recording with Matt Squire. So we kind of left. I think we had a lineup change. I think Aaron went from bass to guitar, and then we kind of came back and recorded the EP. Kind of learned from it, right? And I think Matt learned something, and I actually remember, I think we had some conversations, and then got back in, did the EP. That went really well. It was super positive. And then, of course, that was like, oh yeah, the one we kind of trust to record with was going to be Matt. So anyway, to fast forward to answer your question about working with a producer, like Colin came in and laid down the drums really fast after he kind of had the framework. So then I would go and do a scratch track for the song, kind of as the framework, and then Colin could work with Matt through the parts to make sure, to down to the point of like, man, that snare hit, you missed that one snare hit, you didn't quite hit it the same. We'd have to go back and do it again. And that was, a little bit tedious at times. But by that point, Colin had really worked with click tracks, so he was much more comfortable. So I feel like they plowed through, then Colin came on the bass and went through it. Aaron played his parts really fast, and then they all had to work. So they kind of headed out, and then were coming in as needed if we were kind of rearranging something. But then it was Matt and myself really working on the vocals and my guitar part stuff, and some of the just kind of embellishments. And I remember it being awesome, but it's stressful because he's particularly super supportive, but he kind of want to get a certain kind of performance. And I remember feeling like, I really want it to be sing-songy, and I wanted it to be a little more driven, but he found that good, that could fine line, right?
Yeah.
I guess he could, I feel like I'm always pretty hard on myself. So, I could definitely be the one to kind of really get negative in the booth if it's just not sounding right. I think we might have tracked The Lighthouse Man the first thing we did, because it was one of the last songs we recorded. Mm-hmm. We had kind of just finished doing the music for it. And he's like, why don't we shoot that one? Because I think he liked that song. And so I went in the studio, in the booth, and did the song, and it sounded terrible, at least to us. To me, I was like, oh my God, forget it. And we kind of, I think, left that night, forget that song. That was kind of an idea, but it's just not working. And then went back and kind of went and tracked all the vocals for the rest of the record. And I think that kind of built some momentum. We got more, you just kind of get more comfortable in that setting. And then it was the last song we recorded and finished.
Yeah. And I'm glad you did, because that's a song I go back to all the time. It has almost a mineral feel, and then you put in the strings and the heartbreaking story of the guy who walks out to sea. I mean, come on, that's just classic. And I have found that a song isn't quite done, and you're like, it's not going to work, and then somehow it just all comes together in the studio.
Yeah, right. And you kind of catch this thing. I don't know how you do it.
Lightning in a bottle,
or just, one night it just didn't sound good at all. And the next night it was we were all excited about it and enjoying the process. But there was definitely some, just stressful days of because there was the time crunch of having to make it go. There's the, kind of, doing your first album of, these are the songs that I've really been working on and pouring myself into. And is this going to even be good? All that stuff going through it. So, I guess in a way, I was listening to the Chain of Strength interview on Where It Went podcast, and they were just like, we just trying to get it done, and we had 8 hours to record the record. And then all of us listened to that album, hanging on every song, imagining what it was like to, record in the studio. But for them, it was just kind of a blur. They were just trying to get it done.
Right. Because you don't have the luxury of time or money. You're just like, this is the amount of hours we have. Whatever comes out is what we're going to do.
Yeah. And some of that's just kind of, I don't want to say luck of the draw, but just how it develops. And it's kind of out of your control, right?
Yes.
And God forbid to a point, that it can, ruin a session to the where you don't even want to release it. Right. Or anyway, so I feel like, but it's great to hear you guys say that, because I do feel like once we kind of finished and I was able to step back for like 2 weeks from the record, because I think I really did sort of leave the studio feeling like, oh my God, I failed the band. I failed myself. Feeling really down. But then Matt did some mixes and I kind of got some distance from it, and then heard the record and was excited. And I think we really had some momentum then to go on that little US tour afterwards, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
So Lighthouse Man, did you have someone come in to play strings on that?
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because we did wrong in that Amber Blankenship played the cello, and she went to school at VCU, so and teaches. But she came in at the time my friend, and then became a long-term girlfriend, and played on the record. She drove up. Matt had her in. We had an idea for the melody, which we kind of had drawn out with the guitar, and then she just came in and did it in like an hour, which was really cool. But that was sort of after we were kind of hearing the mixes back and getting an idea how the song was. And I was like, oh yeah, we should do that. Because I think originally I wanted to do it with an EBow.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we did it with a cello. I thought it turned out
cool
too.
It's such a nice accompaniment. It just really solidifies the whole thing. Well,
I mean, as a far stretch from like the where we had started as a band to get there.
Yeah.
But, towards that point as well, it was getting that kind of vision going for the record. I think by the time we'd written like 14 songs, so I sort of had an idea too of like, I feel like all this fits together there. There's a theme of death for sure on a lot of those songs.
Mm-hmm.
But also in the idea that like, life is short and seize the day. I mean, on our demo, we had a song called Carpe Diem. So that was definitely a theme that was running through, but I feel like that lyric in that song, oh man, that must have come together, over the course of, that really got intensely writing. I think once we kind of signed the contract with Textbook, I really got serious about like, taking these parts that I was like kind of floating and like, as soon as we kind of know what we're doing with this album, I'll kind of get it done. But I like got super motivated and did the Death of the Ghost. What am I thinking of? The third to last track, Somber Silt.
Isn't it funny how you mentioned that you wanted to go in and make it sound like Manic Compression, and it really doesn't. Like,
not at all.
Yeah. you often go into the studio and think it's going to sound like this. This is what it's going to, and it never really ends up being what you imagined, at least in my experience. Now, spiritually, it does sound like Quicksand, and that it's post-hardcore and it's got some heaviness with emotion. But if you listen to Manic Compression and you listen to Death of the Ghost, it's really not. There's only one song that like really sounds like Quicksand. And I think I forget, it's Hollow maybe? It starts with a very quicksandy riff.
So quick, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, almost, but I mean, and I think we just wanted like, I wanted it to be, I don't know, for some reason, a little bit more of because I thought like Manic Compression compared to Slip, I don't want to say it was lo-fi, but there was something with the compression literally on that record that just, I don't know. I just felt like it was going to fit our sound or something. But you're right. It didn't sound anything like that. It sounded like what Matt Squire, because it was Matt Squire recording it. And I think he even said as much.
Yeah, Slip I almost think of as like a hip hop record. It's very like compressed, controlled, groovy. Yeah. And Manic Compression is more like faster, all over the place, in your face type of deal. Now, give us some humorous anecdotes. What do you got?
You're putting
now. Last time we talked about the taxi driver dying.
Oh yeah,
which was a great story. So we know you have to have more.
I think. Well, I do remember being in this. Like I was recording vocals for the EP, and I think everyone was in the room, and you're like peering out through there, and you're singing vocals. And people are laughing, and usually they're just because they're not really paying attention. They're like dicking around with each other. But I think at some point, Matt was just dogging me so hard. This is not even going to be funny, but no, I have the lyric on the first record, and guys, forgive me for not remembering this, about Abby, the name Abby, and him just taking the piss out of me about it so badly, and everyone laughing. And just being stuck in that little room of like, oh man, fuck being a singer, you know? Like, I remember being a guitar player and being done, and now at this point, yeah, I could be playing, you know, PlayStation or whatever they were doing, instead of like sweating it out in here, trying to write the lyric, trying to, you know, because it is great to get to do songs like that, but it was stressful. Gosh, man, I mean, I shouldn't say any of the stories were funny, but like, it was as a session, it was really cool to come in as a band too, to have that place to ourselves for 2 weeks. They had a whole like piano room, where I could go and work on stuff while they were tracking, which was awesome. And at the time, I was like everyone into Coldplay, and I think I was playing some Coldplay riff on the piano poorly, and immediately got caught doing that. And everyone was like, "Oh my god, you know, so emo in here with my acoustic guitar playing piano." But I'm falling flat with that with the stories. I mean, it was really super focused, somewhat stressful time. With Andrea and calling mid session when it was just starting to get momentum and being like, oh man, we may not be able to finish this. That was definitely a crunch moment. Man, I wish we should have gotten Colin on here, because he would have remembered, much better memory than me. They had like a little bunk bed area where the rest of the band would kind of hang out. So a lot of times it ended up just being Matt and myself sort of going through the songs, and then, hey, Aaron, come back in here and do this or whatever. Because, you know, you guys know obviously that Aaron and Colin playing Cloak Dagger, both Collins.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and
I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Well, so it's funny because Renee Heartfelt was practicing in the old Count Me Out space, and then we moved spaces. And I can't remember how the lineup changed, but, you know, Mike Stankovich from Striking Distance and Aaron Barth has also played in Striking Distance, were originally in the band. And through that in DC knew For the Living, which I think Colin, that was his first band. And there's two Collins, Colin the drummer and Colin the bass player, Colin Barth, Colin Kimball. But Colin played through in some DC bands, and sort of kind of obviously everybody mixing it up that way. But somehow Aaron convinced his brother, because he is an amazing guitarist, amazing bass player, to drive down from DC and join our band, which at the time I was like, you know, I didn't know what Colin's musical tastes were. And this is right after the EP, but down he came. And it was only like, I feel like it was a month or two before we went into the album to record, or went into the studio to record the album. So it was a big change up, and also a big change up to have like a really strong musician come in. So that was super cool to have him. We'd already kind of had some songs together, and to have him come in and put his touches on it, especially the bass. And I keep returning to that song, Death of the Ghost, but that was one where we were kind of going through it, and he came in and heard it and just immediately laid down the bass the way it was, super simple, but just tied the song together. It was just awesome. But he was sort of kind of, you know, he just kind of came in, hung out with his brother, enjoyed it, I think, but he would be driving back home. So it really, a lot of the session felt like it was myself and Matt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And Death of the Ghost. I mean, I know I say this about a lot of your songs, but man, so good. Like, big chorus, big soaring chorus, excellent chorus riff. I mean, that's just what a way to end Death of the Ghost. You got Death of the Ghost, the song, and then Lighthouse Man. Yeah, I mean, you're seeking emotional assistance after that 1-2 punch for sure.
Yeah, man. That, in a way, we thought about that, because I mean, ordering and putting that song, which is towards the end that way, but and I don't have the album in front of me. Hold on one second. Did I bring this up last time that I was starting to get I clearly a little more grandiose with the idea of the lyrics, or like the concept album of it, of, you know, gratitude for the death of the ghost is forgiven, those 3 songs. So I titled them to sort of hoping that was a bit of an Easter egg to someone reading the lyrics, would be like, oh, okay, this all kind of runs in line. But that's where the parentheses are. It's not just because I'm like, you know, it's so that you could read it out as a full sentence.
I thought you were just being artistic or something.
Yeah, I think that's what most people thought. I was like, oh, maybe it was just a little too much. And maybe it would have made more sense to have them go right in a row. But that was probably as far as I was going to get with this record lyrically. But I did feel like those songs ran together, including The Lighthouse Man. But yeah, I mean, looking back lyrically, it really did seem like I was sort of hung up on death.
Did you think you were going to die or something, or was it more just life is short, live it to the fullest?
Yeah, I think more of the latter, you know. I was also starting to get into, and that's one of our unreleased songs on the record that we didn't put on there, Korea. And you guys will get to check that out. But that also kind of led into Memorial. And my father's uncle died in World War II. So that was, I guess the stories of all that always colored some of the stuff. And Korea was partly about that, and death. And like the idea that, you send young men to die, or, at 25, you're kind of appreciating how much youth, how valuable it is, and all as you're seeing, so those were all ideas that were spinning forward. But I don't, since then I don't think, maybe with Memorial Ben has caught up with it, but certainly that the album we did with Renee Heartfelt, lyrically, that's where my headspace was for whatever reason. But I'm glad to hear you say it, because I felt like we were towards the end of the record after, that, as you said, 1-2 punch, it was just getting pretty heavy lyrically, right? I mean,
yeah. And Death of the Ghost, especially, is Death of the Ghost personal experience, or is that kind of a story you crafted? Because there's some heavy stuff in there, like someone's messing with a gun, and I watched his chest explode. It seems like there may have been some kind of shooting. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think that the imagery I was going after, at least the storyline and thought I was going off, is just that. I mean, opening with Gratitude For is sort of the son frustrated with his father, right? And sort of the story he's been told about, how to be a man, whatever. And then sort of going back into this is forgiven, sort of fast forwards and skips Death of the Ghost. So Is Forgiven is sort of, referencing the 12 men, the jurors, right? And then Death of the Ghost talking about shooting his father.
See, I always thought the 12 men was a religious reference, like the 12 apostles. There's 12 men who think so. I was like, I wonder if he's religious.
Honestly, that was there too. And absolutely. And I think, we were talking the other night too. I think Renee Heartfelt often got mistaken for a religious band because I did use a lot of religious imagery. And I couldn't tell you why that is, because I didn't really come up religious at all. But I guess I've just always seen the power in those words. And I mean, you kind of get that instant visceral reaction with some of those words. So maybe that's why they show up.
Plus, dealing with bitter hardcore kids, you mention anything remotely religious once, you're a religious band. That's it.
Yeah, so it definitely happened a few times where we were booked with religious bands, or like, on a show that was all Christian bands.
Maybe being from Virginia as well, you just kind of get lumped into that.
We'll take it. Yeah, exactly.
There's entire bands that have spent the rest of their careers trying to explain to people, we're not religious. Like, I always think about like Zayo, everybody was like, oh dude, they're like super religious, super. And then you would like we talked to Scott from Zayo, and he's like, yeah, we really, none of us, like the band's dynamic completely changed after that record. Like
after that first record.
Yeah. But keep in mind, they're still putting out things like, he was like, the first thing he played on was Liberate Ex Infernus. And it's like, it's called Save Yourself from Hell. What the fuck did you think we were going to think? Like, all of us are sitting there like going like, I'm pretty sure. And like all the imagery is like Dante's Inferno. So it's like,
wow.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. You seem pretty religious to me.
Yeah, it's true. I think once you get that title, though, it does tend to stick. People tend to remember that about you, right?
Yeah. But you know what? I'm 38 years old now, and I just don't give a shit. I'll jump on YouTube. Yes, YouTube, Tommy. I'll listen to Overcome, Zayo, Strong Arm. I don't give a fuck. If it's good, it's good.
If it's good, it's good. Exactly.
Okay, here's a good question. Now, this is a very hypothetical situation in 2020, but with the excitement surrounding the re-release, have you talked to the other members of Renee Heartfelt, and are there any plans for I don't know, an Instagram live performance, or let's say shows happen again in 2 years. Maybe we do a show. Lay it on us.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, Aaron is in Philly now, and Colin and I are in Richmond. And then I think bass player Colin Barth, I think he's up I want to say he's still in New York. But so we're kind of spread out, which makes that difficult, but not impossible. I mean, Renee Heartfelt, when we first started, we practiced in DC half the time and Richmond half the time. And we had 2 DC members. So we had this are we a DC band? Are we a Richmond band? And I definitely want to be a DC
You got to
band.
go with DC. That's, that carries a little more weight.
It did. I mean, but we obviously love Richmond Ribs we did. But of course we toyed the idea we'll be a DC band, especially if someone will pay attention to us then. Because at the time, I can't remember, there was a real strong, who were the strong DC bands, at least coming with that sound. Because at least in Richmond, we had Engine Down. That was a really super cool band. They were exploding. Denali, different sound, but still kind of something different. Because for the longest time, Richmond was only really coming with just kind of metalcore, and then we definitely had a little of the Youth Crew resurgence, and then you hear bands like DTN, all them just are awesome. Strike Anywhere. It's always kind of a varied sound. Anyway, but yeah, so we like to be DC Richmond.
So there is a possibility of another show one day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not going to rule it out, but as I told you guys, it was one of those things where it sort of ended, and we just kind of hung it up.
Yeah. I have to say, I feel dumb even asking about shows anymore, because when the pandemic was sooner and it seemed like maybe it could happen, I don't know, it seemed like a more viable question. But now it's who knows if there will even be a live performance next year? Well, anything like we used to see.
You guys saw that there's going to be a vaccine. I mean, there's 2 different companies now that have vaccines over 90% success. Now, I don't know, of course, all the politics and everything plays out, but to me, they can distribute that well. That's going to radically change the game, hopefully for the better. And I also feel when shows do happen, isn't everyone going to be doing a reunion? I mean, we're probably going to have to line up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we don't have any openings. There's a show every night. You might be able to use Sunday early show or something, but that day coming, I think we're all looking forward to it.
Big time.
Somebody put out, I think it was Mike Miggs put it on Instagram, and he was like, look, if you make your living from playing music right now, and the next thing that doesn't come out doesn't fucking blow my mind, I'm out. You've had so much time. If you don't get it now, you're never getting it right. It's one of those things where it's I always kind of you think what's it going to be like when things get back to normal? And I really hope that it's one of those almost instantaneous kind of just, hey, remember when we used to wear masks all the time? I hope it's like that quickly. I know it won't be, but there's part of me that kind of hopes we just go back to normal and everything. It's kind of like flipping a switch, and it's all right, we'll see the numbers.
We all fantasize of the flip the switch, that everyone will just pack into a show, no problem. No, you're not going to have any issues being wedged, 50%, 50 people over capacity. Will that ever happen again? Right. Even watching on YouTube, old shows, it's a little oh, whoa, yeah, wow, it used to be like that.
It's so weird. I see everybody packed in a little room going nuts, and I'm like, will that ever happen again like that? So after the last time you were on, Pete, I went and looked at some live videos of Renee Heartfelt, which was exciting. And then did you know that on YouTube, there's a video you guys sent to Fuse?
Yes.
It was a submission video to get on that old music video network.
That was Mike Stankovic's grand plan.
Did it work?
No. I think it was everyone had to send that in. And I want to say maybe Joseph Padasol, who shot the music video, helped us with that. Mm-hmm. But it was sort of kooky. We're just hey, let's try to do this. And I think we just shot it in one Saturday after a practice or something like that.
And I don't think you play any actual music in the video.
No, it's and that's, again, I don't even remember what the purpose of it was, because I don't know if it was some sort of, again, a showcase. Yeah, to get on this thing, but I think they were very specific of how they wanted it shot. Kind of, we didn't just want to see a video of your band practicing. Mm-hmm. So it's funny that of all the things that have survived, that's one of them.
It really is. it's funny to even think about Fuse. They were a big deal in music, I guess back when music television was a thing. I always remember seeing that building when I would get off Penn Station in New York City. Like the first thing you would see is that big Fuse sign.
How long were they a thing though?
They were still around in the mid-aughts, like 2006, 2007. I'm guessing they disappeared sometime shortly after that.
I see. I don't know, because I don't, not that I'm the authority on that, but like I felt that there was that, and there was a lot of these kind of like industry magazines.
Yeah.
So it was like a lot of bands that were just getting pushed, and it was like, oh, the A&R team's going to put the band in there, and you're looking through, and it's like all these different new bands coming out, and it seemed like looking from the backside of like, oh, how do you get in that magazine? Is it just the magazine? No, you kind of your A&R guy either pays somebody or to get in there, and I mean we were in a few of those as well. And Fuse kind of, I guess I was wrong or right, but reminded me of that a little bit. Because like we talked about, there was some options at that point, and that still goes on today, just pay to play.
Yeah, people just hire a publicist. I'll never forget this tweet I saw from a comedian. I think it was a woman who said something to the effect of, I'm shocked every time, and I shouldn't be, when I see a comedian getting pushed so much, but all they did was hire a publicist.
I always thought of, what was crazy to me was I remember the first time I talked to Anthony from Circa Survive, and this was a long time ago, but they were trying to come up with the name of the band, and he was like, hold on a second, I have to call the lawyer. And I was like, you guys have a fucking lawyer? Wait, what? He's like, oh, we got to check if the name's already taken, because they wanted to use La Cosa Nostra because it translates to this thing of ours. And they were like, we love that. It's such a great idea. It's our thing. Like, and he called, he's like, yeah, there's a band from California called that. We can't use it.
Like, that's so 21st century.
Yeah. Like, you guys have attorneys already? Jesus. Like,
I feel for bands because this is like, it's like the stuff you have to worry about now.
I always think it's a crazy thing that I remember people talking about just like intellectual property in general. And I was like, well, how does it get determined? Like my daughter asked this story the other day because they were watching a television show, and they actually kind of made the joke. I don't remember what it was, but they were singing Happy Birthday, but they didn't sing the whole thing because apparently you still had to pay royalties on it. It was like one of the old, like an old Hannah Montana or something like that. And my daughter was like, how long do you have to make money from your song? And I was like, that's a really good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. And we started looking it up, and I think it's 75 years from the death of the creator. Like, so it's from that part, like from whoever creates it, it's from 75 years from that date of their death. You can still collect royalties on it, or at least the estate can collect the royalties. And I was like, that's insane. But that's why also you hear like these songs that you're like, oh, they use this because nobody has to get paid. Like,
yeah, that's why restaurants have their own birthday song and that type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. But it just never kind of dawned on me until a 6-year-old asked me, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't know. It's like, Jesus, I've never even thought about that.
The good thing about the band name Renee Heartfelt is no other band has that name. And you drop that shit in a hashtag, it's only going to be you guys. That's it.
I think that was unexpected. Maybe we were cognizant of that, but did I talk about the name last time?
No, and that was going to be my next question, so lay it on us.
Well, so there was a restaurant next to, I'm getting too in depth here, but often after practice, we go to this place called China Panda, which was like a vegan, vegetarian Chinese restaurant next to the main club Twisters in Richmond that sort of a lot of bands played in. And I'll not forget that I think it was Mike Stankovich was still in the band, Charlie, myself, and Colin. We were having dinner, and we had some songs. I think we had 3 songs. And we're like, all right, we're going to be a band. And so we had the list of names. And one of the names was Renee Heartfelt, Hartvelt, the German name, I think, Renee Heartfelt. I think maybe Mike Stankovich brought that. And there was a bunch of other names, and everyone was picking names, and we kind of I think we voted like top 5, like what would be the name. And that was in there. And so it was, everyone kind of voted for that name, but then but not our number one choice. Right. So long short of it, that was going to be our name. But then we were like, all right, if we're going to name ourselves Renee Heartfelt, and I'll get to why that would be, we were worried that maybe that person was going to come sue us. So it was there even then. But I think I've told this story before, and I hope I get it right. But there was and this is Mike Stankovich. And if you knew Mike, he gets excited about crazy stuff and has all these random cool stories. And I guess this was one of them that he was particularly fascinated with, which was that this German foreign exchange student in Japan went over there. Her professor, I guess, got obsessed with her. Her name was Renee Heartfelt, and shot her in the back and tried to eat her.
Oh,
no shit.
Crazy. So she ended up, I guess he was excommunicated somehow, ended up back in Japan and really suffered very little consequence for this. And then became a little bit of like a cult hero because I guess and again, I'm not 100% of this people. Someone's going to go on Google and totally correct this. But as it was told to me in this restaurant, as we're sitting there eating, that this was a story, and we were all like, "That's insane." But why don't we change it to Renee Heartfelt? Because I guess there was something about that name that was sticking, and we thought, well, if we change the name, it's sort of like, man, this poor woman, and no one even knows about her, and like died this horrible way, and now this guy's kind of quasi-famous.
I just looked it up. All right, so again, this is from Wikipedia, so don't. This is it's the best information I could get in 7 seconds. The guy's name was Issei Sagawa. He was a professor, but this is the whole thing behind it: is that he was arrested but released after 2 years of pretrial detention because he was found legally insane, and he was deported to Japan. And then due to his release on a legal technicality, he became a kind of celebrity in Japan.
Right. I mean, that's insane.
That's terrible.
And the worst part is that he has all these links to his name. Her name is not hyperlinked. It's just her. She's the most minuscule part of the story, is this poor girl that lost her life.
Right. And I mean, I was worried at the time that I was like, I don't want it to come across insensitive that like we're naming our band after this girl. And I guess it does sound kind of crazy, but we had good intentions as much as that's possible. We weren't trying to, and also why we changed it to Heartfelt. And we also thought it just sounded better.
It does. And I think it's saying heartfelt. It's kind of like a memorial because, man, that's just a tough story. Do you think somewhere out there, maybe her family or someone who knows her knows that you guys did that and it's kind of like a tribute to her?
I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
But maybe we can dream. I don't know. I mean, it is a little bit of a tribute to her, and that, or just, yeah. I also felt like the name, it felt different at the time. And like I was into that idea of it, that we were kind of heartfelt. Like I was one a little bit hard on the sleeve. As much as it felt a little cheesy, it still felt like that's where we were coming from. It was like a perfect mix. So that became the name. And then we had to tell that story every time. I always felt compelled to tell that story for no reason. But I guess because people were like, what is this name? You know?
I remember reading that in a print interview with you guys, and I never forgot it. So I wanted to ask you to make sure I didn't like make it up in my mind, because it's a pretty wild story.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm glad I remembered it half well too. I thought you were going to read that Wikipedia and be like, actually, no, Pete.
Actually. One thing we wanted to ask you about, which we didn't get to last time, is you're a pilot.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of planes do you fly, and how often do you fly?
So I have a pilot's license for gliders. So I have a pilot's license with a glider rating, is essentially how it goes. You get a single engine rating or dual engine and on to jets and everything. So I'm licensed specifically to fly gliders only. But that is, and I probably fly, I went a couple days ago, but the weather didn't turn out. So probably twice a month. And my flights tend to be about 2 to 5 hours.
So just real quick, when you do a glider, you get towed up to a certain altitude, and then they kind of cut a cord, right?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways to launch, but that's most common in America is to get aero towed. So they'll take like an ag wagon or a Pawnee, which are really designed to lay down like pesticides and stuff on farms. So they're super overpowered. But you pull that stuff off, put a tow hook on the back of it, yeah, and it'll pull a glider up in about, I want to say about 600 to 700 feet per minute. So just like a 3-minute tow, and you're at 2,000 feet, and you release.
So in the glider, there's no engine or anything. You're just gliding.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of it's a similar concept to surfing in that you kind of go out with this thing that has no motor, and you get it up to speed to catch the energy of the wave, and now you're riding that energy, right? Same with the glider, is that the tow plane is sort of the catalyst to get you up high enough to where the currents are getting organized enough that you can find these cylinders going up at 1,000 feet a minute, and you get the glider into that sort of wave of air, and now you can climb.
So you catch up like updrafts and stuff like that to even actually increase altitude.
That's right. Yeah. And then there's other phenomena too. There's ridge lift, and there's also wave, which is pretty wild, which is sort of like when you see a pebble in a running stream and it creates that ripple downwind or downstream of it.
Yeah.
So that happens on a big scale in the sky. And yeah, you can get up to, I think they've gone up to 90 or 60 or 70,000 feet.
Jeez.
At my flying site, we've got up to 18,000, which is pretty fun to do it.
Insane. What got you interested in aviation?
Always been into it. I think when grew up in Chicago, there was air shows on the lake, and my dad was in the military and kind of a military guy. I'd always loved that stuff and just started bringing us to those air shows. So that always planted the seed. But my eyesight wasn't great, and it was kind of my brother's thing to go become a pilot. So, but it was always there. And then he went into the Air Force, but decided, or was kind of unable to pursue being a pilot because of his eyesight as well. But that kind of always planted the seed. And then he took me soaring out. And when he was working out in LA, I just got out of college right before starting Renee Heartfelt. And we went up in one of the only like 3-seat glider made by Schweitzer. And that was it. So that kind of planted the seed. And then I guess after being kind of out of school and working, I had some time to try to pursue it. And it just finally all of a sudden like crystallized. And I was all of a sudden like, I got to do this. And I think within about a year, I went from student to getting my license.
Wow.
Do you do anything else with like, do you do like model planes or?
Yeah, that's as most people I feel like could get into aviation. Definitely. I built models too in Chicago. I grew up next to this, I think I brought this up last time, the skate shop called Tum Thumb. So they've had the skateboards, and that's kind of what brought us in, but there was all of the models in the back, RC, all that stuff. So I started tinkering with that at an early age. So it was kind of in the background, but my 20s, I was just doing music. All I cared about was music. So I kind of hung it up, but all of a sudden without a band, without Memorial, once that kind of ended, I had some free space, and I think I started filling it with that. So I think that was RC helicopters, kind of how I got into it. Now the guys in Memorial would make fun of me too, because I was geeking out about that when we were writing the last record, and I'd be like out in the back after the practice showing it to them, and they were just like, "What are you doing, man?" But I think I'm glad I did it, as dorky as it was, because it got me into soaring, which is just, if you're listening to this podcast and you have any interest at all, you can definitely look on YouTube. There's a guy, Bruno Balleka, Balleka, and they kind of show what you can do in a glider, and it's pretty incredible. So I just had to do it. I love surfing, love rock climbing. I loved kind of interacting with nature in that way, sort of not just like passively, but actively, and it just, man, it felt like it kind of just fell in my lap. And I was like, oh man, this just makes total sense. And also I couldn't believe, as maybe you can't either, that there's enough energy in the atmosphere to do something like that you can get an 800-pound glider and it climbs without a motor, and it'll climb faster than a plane. I mean, a single engine.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't quite understand it either. I think the first time I took a flight, I was like, oh, okay, you just you release from the tow plane and glide down.
Yeah.
And that is one thing and fun, but the real art of it is soaring, which is where, yeah, you're gaining altitude, and the guy, people are doing 1,000-mile flight.
Jesus.
So you're telling me you can be up there gliding for 2 to 5 hours? Yeah,
I mean, guys glide 8 hours. I want to say the world record's, it's really long, but they stopped going for that just because of like safety reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's enough energy up in the atmosphere, especially in the ridges around Colorado, or even where we have on the East Coast, the Appalachian Mountains, that you can do these really incredible long flights and go straight for 2 hours. You never turn, and you're in lift, and you're cruising along at 80 miles per hour.
Wow.
But that's also the kind of like the skill of the surfer. You got to get up there and kind of know what you're doing and how to interact. But it's an awesome challenge, man. And it's a cool part of aviation that I don't think even a lot of people that are into aviation are into, because nothing against power. Power piloting is super fun and certainly like functional, whereas gliding is not. But the gliding, I think, is cool because every flight's different. And it's just like going surfing. You got to kind of react to the conditions you get and make the best flight of it you can. So there's definitely some days that it's not so good and you're stuck at the airport. But then there's another day that it's really good and you get 75 miles from the airport into the mountains, up into some, up above the clouds, and then turn back around, come home, and it was a 5-hour flight.
It does sound like surfing because people are like, oh, we got to get this set and we got to get there at the right time. And are the waves going to be okay? All that type of stuff.
And for better or worse, it is so weather dependent. It's not like playing football where you're going to play no matter what, right? Or even playing in a band, you're going to play no matter what as long as there's electricity. So you kind of can show up, and then that's what happened last weekend. You kind of show up and it's just not working. So you can't do it because if there's no air going up, you're going to take a 10-minute flight.
Well, Pete, you surf, you're a pilot, you're a dentist, you write great songs, you can sing, and you're an attractive man. Now, prior to your current relationship, did you have to fend off the women all the time?
Oh man, no, I didn't. Remember, and Katie, my wife, makes fun of me for this, and rightfully so. My little wire-rimmed glasses, and I had braces. I had my jaw broken, hence why I got into dentistry to begin with. So I never really felt that way. But thank you.
I'm here to boost you up, man.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, I've always been and am still incredibly awkward. So, I typically end up in relationships with people I've known for a while or meet and am friends with or friends of friends, that type of deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't seem like you are. You seem pretty outgoing, but maybe again, it's in that right situation.
It's definitely a right situation type of thing. I am racked with anxiety before I get to any type of social function, but then once I'm in it, I'm like, I'm doing this, and then it's okay. So it's like outside, exterior, okay. Inside, I'm a mess.
And do you ever want, like, how many people probably have that to some degree, right?
Oh, I'm sure most people do.
Most people probably, but still, yeah. I hear you.
Yeah, because like whenever, even like every week before we go to record this podcast, I'm like, I can't do it anymore. It's every week. It's too much pressure. I don't want to edit it. And then we get rolling and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm fine. So what is it about it? What is it about our inner voice that wants to keep us from doing everything?
I don't know. That is a great question, but don't you think it's probably snuffed out so much great art and stuff as everyone talks themselves out of it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking about, we were talking about the circumstances that led to the Renee Heartfelt records getting released and recorded. And think about how many bands are out there that had great music and just never got recorded and it's done. That's it. We'll never hear them.
Yeah.
Tommy, that's a new podcast idea. In search of music. We'll find the bands that never got a chance to record and we'll present. Well, I guess we're kind of doing that already anyway.
You're gonna go even more obscure than us. I like that.
Yeah. So Pete, where are you at musically these days? What are you listening to? Do you have any connection to the scene still? Like Tommy and I are still all over the map. We listen to some rap. We listen to some heavy stuff still. We were just listening to the band End before we started recording. They're heavy. They're pretty good. We still love all the post-hardcore stuff. Hum. I was listening to their new record again today. We're all over the map. Where are you?
That's awesome. I'm going to embarrass myself and look through your top songs 2019.
Yes.
Right.
I want to know what you're up to.
So I've got Grizzly Bear. That Morning Sound, y'all know that song? I've kind of gotten and I make fun of my kids for this, but at the same level I'm doing it where I'm like, this is the song I like from your band. And I will listen to it. I will listen to it 20 times. You know what I mean?
That dude, I was just talking to Tommy about this too. I fuck with these year-long playlists now. So I'm sad to say it, but I don't hear whole records too much anymore. So someone will show me a great song from a band, and I'll add that song to the playlist, and that's my understanding of your band now. I listen to that song.
Right. And like, yeah. So,
and then it takes me
same.
months and months to circle back and get back to the record. But please continue with your list.
All right. So, looking here, okay, there are Pete Yorn, Empire of the Sun, Com Trues. I don't know if you know them. Kurt Vile.
Yeah, the electronic act.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot more electronic music.
Yeah.
Loving that stuff. Wilco, Ryan Adams. Pretty basic here, man. Oh my God, it keeps going. The same stuff. M83. Kavinsky.
Yes.
Do you know them? That's a little bit. Tribe Called Quest. Lil Wayne.
Yeah.
Mamma Mia. That song is insane.
I actually got into Lil Wayne when I was like 22. I started teaching at an alternative school for like kids that got kicked out of regular high school. And one of the extra parts of the job was like, hey, do you want an extra $1,000 a year? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, you can pick the kids up in the morning. And I was like, okay. And there was a little CD player in the van, and it was like a 15-passenger van. So I used to like literally be like, I would tell the kids like, where do I pick you up? And they'd be like, we all meet at 7-Eleven. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I would pick up like 8 kids at one 7-Eleven and pick up another 5 kids at the Wawa down the street. And we were driving in the one day, and the one kid goes, you want to put on a CD? And I was like, I don't have any CDs in here. And he's like, I have some. And he put on Lil Wayne's The Drought.
Yeah.
It was an old mixtape. Oh my word. I remember the first time he played that song, Cannon. I was like, okay, so I'm hooked on this. It's heavy. It's smart. Like, and that's one of those things where people think of like Lil Wayne as like this kind of like goofy, like poppy. It's like his stuff is super smart. Like he does some really cool wordplay stuff that if you're not paying attention, it's easy to gloss over. But there's a line.
I'll never forget. You got me into him, Tommy. It was that song "I'm Me," and he samples Moby,
Yes.
God moving over the face of the waters.
Yes,
that's so good.
There's a line in one of the songs where he says something. We're in Louisiana where we got blue bayous, and I drove past you, or I wave as I blew by you, and I'm like, that's really clever. Like blue bayou, and like it's just the play on word type shit that he does that you're like, wow, that's really, really smartly done, and it's just so interesting because people kind of like go, oh, it's just, you know, I don't like that, and it's like, have you ever really given it a chance? Because he's phenomenal. Like there's some really, really good songs out there.
I agree, man. And if you're really listening, he's destroying it. I mean, so definitely worth all the hype. Although you're right. If you're not, you can kind of be like, I don't really hear why this is so insane. Sylvanessa, do you guys like them?
Never heard them.
No, they've got a great song called "Die Young," another song about death, but really well done.
It's the recurring. Now at that age, I thought I was going to die young. I had an older brother who died at 17. He was a diabetic.
Oh my God! Sorry, man.
Yeah, it was really rough for me and my family, and I still haven't fully dealt with it yet. But maybe I'll do that on the next episode. And that was just a joke. We can laugh. Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just keeping it light. But so I had a complex where I thought I was going to die young for a while. Plus, I was heavily addicted to drugs and alcohol for many years. So, you know, those two together, I thought I was on my way out for sure.
Yeah, and coupled with being like young, that you could just kind of have that a little more of that, maybe that sense, or just, I don't know, life is short. Yeah. But man, I'm so sorry to hear that. That really must have affected you at that age. I can't imagine.
For sure, because life with my family was tough already, but throw that into the mix and it was like an atomic bomb. And I don't know, I think I don't remember a lot of it. It's like, I don't know, I think it was very traumatic. You know what I mean? Like I just remember like flashes. And I think I still have like, well, there's certainly some residual stuff still, but you know, it's part of life. Death is part of life.
It certainly is, but I think that's something that goes to like, that's there might be something that kind of is just in our like kind of survival mechanisms as people, because I can think of like So like my father passed away when I was young, but like I literally have a couple vivid memories of that day. It's literally like one of the most defining parts of my life. And I remember the wallpaper pattern at the funeral home. And I remember that my mom made me eat pasta for dinner that night and I didn't want to eat. And then she was like, you have to eat it. And I just like, I still won't eat spiral noodles to this day.
Wow.
Because every time I see it, I'm just like, ugh, like that's all I can think of is my mom like forcing me to eat. And I'm like, I don't even want to eat. Like, can we just go to bed? Can we just not deal with this right now?
Yeah, sadly, I remember the day. I remember the aftermath. I remember they bought there was a McDonald's near my parents' house, so they brought us food. And same thing. They were like, "You have to eat," and I was like thinking, like, "How the fuck am I going to eat?" Like,
it's pretty much the last thing I want to do right now.
Yeah, really. So, well, I'm gonna. All right, we're in the glider right now, and I'm pulling the joystick back, and we're gonna fly back up because I want to end on a positive note. But listen, folks, here's what we're gonna do. This Friday, Black Friday, we are going to order the Renee Heartfelt discography on 6131 Records website. Now, only 199 people order it because I want to make sure I get one too. Okay. Now, Pete, you said there's going to be some shirts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Sean at 613 is going to do that, but I dropped a whole buttload of shirts from our U.S. tour, so just like leftover stuff. And it's not just extra larges, although there are extra larges in there. So there's that stuff. There's some 7 inches. We had some old posters. So hopefully, yeah, somehow we can incorporate that because certainly the people that still love and care about the band, we want to have that stuff. So yeah, come buy the record.
Yes, buy the record. Listen to the band. Oh, and I had one more question. Now, when you Google Pete Appleby or Renee Heartfelt, like we're in the mix now too. The Northeast scene, we're tied in there with you. Did any patients hear the podcast and come talk to you and say like, "Oh, we had no idea," or did you hear anything at all?
I definitely had a lot of friends and extended family friends, people all reach out who did listen to it. So that was cool. But specifically patients, no, thankfully they're pretty much oblivious.
I was saying, have you ever had a patient be like, "Oh, you're interested in music? Did you ever play in a band?" Did you have to like go?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So how do you approach that?
Because I mean, I have like some band. I have some like posters, and at one point I had a guitar hanging in one of my operatories. We can't do that stuff anymore. So, how do I approach that? I'm always psyched to hear about their story, but I rarely share mine. Just because it's at first there was some level of like I was first a new dentist. I wanted to make sure that they didn't think I was just because I think a lot of people are like, oh, you're in a band, that means you're kind of like I don't know, a Rolling Stone type, and I want my dentist to be a little more I don't know.
Yeah,
right, grounded. So I just kind of didn't talk about it, but more and more now, I've got music in both my operatories, so all the time I'll have people in and we put on music loud and that's awesome. Like someone would be like, hey, this is a band, this is a group I'm into. I always want to hear what people are listening to. But for the most part, I've deflected that unless it's someone like really pushing. But I've had some friends of friends who definitely know the band and have come to see me just they need a dentist. But and that's always cool if they just bring up something. But yeah, usually I don't go too in depth about the band.
That's my philosophy too, because I work in a very corporate environment, and there's certain connotations with music guys. I don't want people to think I'm some crazy drug addict or anything. Wink, wink. Plus, I don't know. I just want to be like, when I'm at work, I want to be professional me. And if people are asking me about music, I'll say, yeah, I play, or yeah, I listen to some heavy stuff, some lighter stuff, some rap. I keep it general.
Yeah, it's something like that. Exactly. It's because, and I mean, we were talking about this weekend about like compartmentalizing your life for better or worse. And there's some aspects of that, especially, when you're kind of putting on the professional cap, right?
Yes.
You go in, you kind of have to do that to some extent. Or at least I kind of get trapped in feeling like I need to do that. And I might maybe clam up more than I should talking about it. It's been cool I know I keep saying this, but just like that, because of that, also burying myself in work, it just felt like the band was forgotten about, and then even to some extent by me. I just gotten so focused and moved on from it for a number of years, and then to kind of see some people getting interested again. That's cool.
Well, we're dragging it back out. 6131 Records is dragging it back out, and we're going to have a good ass time. So, Pete, we want to thank you so much for speaking to us again, and we look forward to hearing the discography.
Oh man, thank you for having me. Thanks again for helping to spread the word. I'm so psyched for the people that like and love Renee Heartfelt to get to hear all the songs and get to hear it this way. And I think the mastering sounds really good, and excited for you to hear it. I hope we get feedback. Reach out to me anyway. Love to hear from anyone and everyone. So, and hopefully we'll talk again one day, maybe for the world tour.
I'll be sliding you a demo so I can be the opener, direct support on that tour.
You know it, man. I love it.
All right, Pete. Thanks so much.
Keith, Tommy, thank you guys.
There you have it, folks. Pete Appleby. Now, I'm excited about that Renee Heartfelt discography. We're going to get to hear some new shit. Maybe we'll get to see him play a gig again one day. Man, it's going to be awesome.
How nice would that be? Like, that's like one of those kind of like dream things of like when we get bands back, like what bands are we going to see? Like, I know like you and I have already kind of like gone through like when bands come back, I can't wait to go see X, like, or I can't wait to go see this band. And it's like,
yeah,
I think it's going to be so powerful, especially like when you go see somebody like, I keep thinking of like a Renee Heartfelt or like Caspian, like something like that has that real emotion to it. In my head,
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, I actually I didn't want to say that because like I'm like that maybe that's a little bit too much, but like I really feel like I might get that kind of emotional. I'm
going to for sure.
I know you don't watch it, but I really like that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And one of the last episodes from one of the later seasons, I forget which season it's in, but there's like a whole dance sequence at the end of it where the one guy comes out as gay, and the background, the song they play in the background is Sigur Rós. And I was like laying in bed watching it, and I was like, wow, this is such a beautiful song. I got choked up just sitting there watching it, and it wasn't even the emotionality of like what was going on the actual scene. It was like, it was just the music. I was like, wow, it's just so powerful when you see stuff like that. It's just incredible. And I can't wait to see stuff like that live again.
Oh man, me too. Yeah. So thanks again, Pete, for coming on. Oh, I wanted to ask if you had made any progress on the solo album. I forgot.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I need that. I want to hear that.
I'm actually, I got to think of a way. I don't want to spend a ton of money. You know me.
Yes.
But I really do. There's a couple things that have come out on vinyl recently where I'm like, I would really like to listen to this record. Like, and I mean like a real physical LP. Renee Heartfelt's one of those where I'm like, especially like stuff. There's a lot of Renee Heartfelt stuff. If I'm being really honest, like I don't know their full catalog. Like I know I liked Renee Heartfelt, but I was a bigger Memorial fan. Like I really liked Memorial. Like,
have you heard the Renee Heartfelt discography? They have an EP and an LP.
So I think I've only heard the LP.
Oh, go listen to the EP tonight. It's fucking sick.
Is it that's what he was talking about with the 3-song one, right?
It's 4 songs total.
Okay.
And they're all incredibly good.
I'll have to put it on my YouTube playlist.
You know, I realize I'm on YouTube just as much as you are. It's not my main source for music. So maybe I can't make fun of you for that anymore. Because like I told you, right? But like I was telling Pete, you know, I listened to Beneath on YouTube right before we recorded.
Oh yeah. So
I'm you now.
That's it. I mean, it's always been my go-to thing ever since I figured out like you could just find like anything, like any record from any band of anything that like, you know, what popped into my head the other day was because I was thinking about like I was folding laundry and I have a Coalesce shirt that I hardly ever wear it, but I was like, oh, I should go listen to that Get Up Kids Coalesce split. And first place I went to, right on YouTube, typed it in, and it came right up, and I was like, damn, this is a fucking banger. What a great song.
Which song is it again?
I think it's called Coming Clean, is the one that Coalesce covers.
Oh, the Get Up Kids covers.
Yeah, so it's like when they did so like they covered the Get Up Kids and the Get Up Kids covered Coalesce.
I don't know if I've ever even heard that. I got to go check that out.
The Coalesce one is really, really good. Really, really good.
Well, we got some new emails. You want to hear one?
Let's go.
Let's do this. Michelle V says, "Hey, Keith and Tommy, just discovered your podcast via Hopes Falls Instagram. I've been on a nostalgic Hopes Fall trip throughout this pandemic. Can't believe how underrated these guys were, at least up here in Montreal, Canada. I was definitely into them during Satellite Years era, and then they hadn't crossed my mind again until I saw that Arbiter came out. Well, pretty much same here. After being blown away by that release, I had to back through the entire discography. Love everything they've done, just well. I listened to your interview with Josh Brigham, and I have to say it was so great. I found myself nodding and yelling, yes, to so many things that you guys discussed. I have the episode with Adam Morgan queued up for a later listen, really enjoying your podcasts and all the discussions you have amongst each other or with a guest. Fun fact, I actually kept a concert journal during those years, which basically consisted of my critical comments, flyers, tickets, set lists, and photos. And she sent some stuff, so we're going to post that up this week. Wow. Thanks, Michelle. That's awesome.
That's really nice.
Man, Michelle, as you know, and anyone who heard the Josh episode, I reconnected with that band right around the time I was getting clean and also worked through their discography. And it's amazing that someone else is doing that too through this pandemic. So thank you again, Michelle. That's awesome.
That's really nice. It's really nice that people just like go back to like, because that's what a lot of this is for, is like that time of like back then we have, because our lives have just gone forward, we've forgotten about some of those things, and just the kind of like jog your memory, and it's like you start thinking like, oh yeah, I forgot about this band, and I forgot to like, even like tonight, like when Pete was talking, like there was a couple times where he said like, you know, Strike Anywhere. I'm like, shit, I haven't thought about Strike Anywhere in forever. Fuck, man. Like,
yeah,
I was never a huge fan of theirs, but like I would definitely go back and listen to it just to hear some of that stuff, just to be like, oh yeah, I do remember this. Like,
it's great to be able to revisit a lot of this music and revisit a lot of bands I never listened to with fresh eyes and fresh ears, because I don't have my head up my ass anymore, and I'm not like, oh, this sucks, that sucks. I don't listen to this, I don't listen to that. I can listen to and look at things a lot more objectively now than I could 2 decades ago. So, you know, it's just better overall.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. It's really nice.
Matt S. also wrote us. He says, I like how you brought up one podcast that you discovered and you went back and listened to every episode. I've been fortunate enough to be with you guys from the beginning, and you are the only podcast I won't skip an episode for. Uh-huh. I'm not blowing smoke. You guys are awesome, and I look forward to it every Monday morning while I'm working. As someone else stated, I feel like we've known each other already. I will also declare myself a member of the Northeast scene. All right, we've got another member.
Thank
you, Matt S.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club, Matt. Thank you so much. And to hear that someone listens to every episode of this podcast, no matter what, brings us great joy, for sure.
100%. It's really nice to just hear that. I think it's just fun to hear people talk about it in terms of like, I like listening to that. Like I just, it still kind of blows my mind every once in a while, and I'm like, wow, people listen to us. Like because it's so we're so isolated right now. Like it's like, this is something I do sitting in my basement while looking at all my kids' toys. Like, you know, the fact that there's people out there like listening and streaming and paying attention, and like, you know, like Vadim texted us today and he was like, hey, every time I listen, I feel like I'm home, and it's really nice because I keep thinking like, oh, I want to say this, or this is what I would say at this point. And it's like, I forget that there's, you know, people on the other end of this. It's just like, you know, this is the thing we do. Like, it's me and you. And then sometimes other people show up. It's like,
yeah. And thankfully, he told Gary that I asked you, Tommy, do you and Gary connect over being cheap? And I was afraid he was going to get mad at me, but I just checked the group text and he laughed at it.
Oh, good. Well, I think that's one of those things that like I always I am cheap, and I that's like I know that's become like it's like insulting for like, but I feel like I'm not cheap as much as I'm very
Careful with money.
I'm very conscientious about how I spend my money.
Dude, I get called cheap now too a little bit, and listen, I have a girlfriend who has a 14-year-old kid. I have expenses now.
Yeah.
So we have to be spending conscious for sure. Yeah. So listen, we're going to be posting some more stuff that people sent us this week. We got some nice stuff here in Michelle's email, and let's see what else. Well, I guess that's it then. Why force it?
Yeah, no, I'm done. I mean, I don't have it. I can't think of if right now I don't have anything off the top of my head. We'd be like definitely grabbing at straws trying to get some conversation going, and it's like
if you don't have something off the top of your head, we are definitely done.
I was actually thinking about this today, like when I've brought this up before, but like sometimes you have like a shitty day, and then the last thing you want to do is sit down and talk for 3 hours, and it's like I came into this podcast of like, all right, I'm going downstairs, like, all right, I have to put this on hold and put that. And then as soon as we start talking, I'm like, God, this is so much fun.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do because I have to be on and I have to talk for multiple hours, which I never do except for this podcast. But when we're done, I'm in such a good mood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a high. It's awesome. Well, that's it, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and until next time.